Welcome, folks. It's Gord, your hurtin' hippie, with Weedy Weekend number 105. 105. How you doing? How you doing? I only have, I think, 5 stories today, which is more typical, and maybe I'll go more in depth because of that. So let's start off with our first story. Again, my disclaimer that there's nothing controversial nor illegal going on this channel. My child is at some other house, his mother's house. I am talking about legal medical use of cannabis, and if I have any of my medicine while I'm doing this show, it's because I need my medicine. Peace and cheers, love and harmony, pitter patter, let's get at her. Monsanto. Monsanto. There's a word that conjures up fear of genetically modified food eating us. I have never liked that company, and I bring to you a story that just really scared me to the depths of my soul until, of course, I started to rationalize the thought. So, Monsanto has stepped their foot into, let me just say, Monsanto, the multi-billion-dollar agribusiness giant, has announced today it has patented the first genetically modified strain of marijuana. Under present U.S. federal law, it's illegal to possess, use, buy, sell, or cultivate marijuana, since the Controlled Substances Act of 1970 classifies marijuana as Schedule 1, although it's been decriminalized to some extent in certain states. What a run-on sentence, people. Monsanto's interest in the field has been interpreted by experts as the precursor to a major shift in marijuana policy, as it is believed that the company would not have invested so much time and energy if it had not previous knowledge of the federal government's openness towards the future legalization of marijuana. That is a mouthful. That is a huge mouthful to say that even though you may be scared of them stepping their foot into the ring, so to speak, there are some positives to take from it. The very fact that a giant this big that spends this kind of money would spend this kind of money on marijuana, these people have the ear of the elites, of the governments of the world. They know there's a major shift coming. They're getting prepared for it. Would I try anything synthetic or genetically modified marijuana? No. No, and I hope it doesn't get to the point where we don't even know if our corn is genetically modified anymore because they just were able to sneak it into the system. I don't like them having a part and parcel of this. I always knew they'd be out there, but one has to rationalize it. Marinol and other things like that. There's a sativa kind of all. Synthetic marijuana is never caught on. It's very expensive. It's very difficult to make. Sure, maybe they'll make it so that they can get it much better, but I'll never trust it. It'll take off like a lead balloon. Led Zeppelin. So let's move on. I put that there because of the side story to that. Because if Monsanto's getting involved, maybe all this Jeff Sessions calling for the end of medical marijuana and all that, cracking down on medical marijuana states, all that crap, is just obfuscation for a future shift in policy. They usually crack down the hardest just before they shift policy. So maybe because of Canada, because of Mexico, because of so many other countries going that way, maybe there is change on the horizon. Next is the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, is at odds with the DEA, because the FDA has put out a declaration that they want as much input from doctors, nurses, and patients of what is CBD and how has it helped you, because they want to understand it better. Let me bring this story. It's from Leafly, and the story is titled FDA Declares CBD Beneficial and Wants Your Input as Soon as Possible. I do ask any of you that have a statement you want to make, especially you Americans, please click on below. The story will be there. And I go down to a part of the story and I'm going to quote this to you. FDA Deputy Commissioner Anna K. Abram, who sent out the notice this morning, acknowledged that CBD has been shown to be beneficial in experimental models of several neurological disorders, including those of seizure and epilepsy. That puts the FDA at odds with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, which late last year attempted to declare CBD a Schedule I substance. Schedule I drugs, by definition, have no currently accepted medical use and treatment in the United States. This is a good story. It's a good story about the FDA wanting to learn more. I've noticed that in my own broken foot is the doctors, the nurses, the practitioners, they all want to learn more, because I was very open with the only thing I took for my leg was CBD. And I'm 4 weeks yesterday since the break. I'm out of a cast. I'm walking. I'm hobbling, but I'm walking without crutches. So it should have been 6 to 8 weeks. And then a period of learning to walk again. My learning to walk again was a day or two. Sore foot today, but take some CBD, the soreness goes away. I need to relax it. Take a day or two off of exercising it and get back to it. So, great story about CBD. I really hope that you all take a part in that. And you know what? I'm going to cheers with some CBD. This is hopefully soon carried by MMJ Total Healthcare. This is a Keurig container inside. One little turn of the bottom gives you 0.01 mil. And that way you get a perfect dosing every time. 2 turns gives you 0.02. Duh. Peace and cheers. CBD only. I will always say, if you've got pure CBD in distillate or in oil, the lowest temperature you can dab at, the best. Because the higher the temperature, the more medicinal the flavor. You want the flavors, go low. Go low. The next story. Another CBD story. It must be a CBD week. It's a CBD kind of life right now for me. How cannabidiol, CBD, works for treating anxiety. I encourage a lot of you who watch me. A lot of you have anxiety. And there are some beautiful things that can be done here. I think I wanted to highlight, I did highlight a certain area. So I'll read this first. Excuse me, Nita. That was a little hot. In recent years, CBD has generated a tremendous amount of interest among consumers, clinicians, and scientists. Why? Not only does evidence suggest CBD counteracts many of THC's adverse effects, but numerous animal studies and accumulating evidence from human experimental, clinical, and epidemiological studies suggest cannabidiol has powerful anti-anxiety properties. Administered acutely, as needed, has powerful anti-anxiety. As needed, it appears safe, well tolerated, and may be beneficial to treat a number of anxiety-related disorders, including panic disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, social phobia, post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, mild to moderate depression. It has huge, huge benefits. It goes on. This story goes on. I encourage you to read it. It talks about how does CBD work. And that's very technical. I've read it. I understand it. I hope you read it and understand it too, because these kind of things teach you about why this is such a truly, truly magnificent medicine, working on your serotonin receptors, and it just developing natural ways to make your brain work better. CBD is incredible. And I am always going to say, have THC with it, even if it's small amounts. My 30-year-old son is almost purely a CBD person, but he makes sure that the CBD he buys has some THC in it, because that THC component helps the mood, helps the CBD work better. Synergy of these components were meant to be together. They should stay together. That's a good story. It's a really good story. I really encourage you to read it. And now comes from, I was going to start with this story. I'm close to ending with this story. Mostly because maybe you guys have heard enough about Canadian legalization. We are not legal yet. We have a whole year to go. And there's so much, if this, what about that, how about this? This story from thestar.com is something very, very similar. Is pot should be sold in plain packages, tax revenues focused on mental health and addiction services, the Canadian Mental Health Association says. Now, I really encourage people to ask, always, if somebody's speaking about cannabis, do they have training in it and understanding of it? I do not believe the head of the CMHA, the Canadian Mental Health Association, knows anything about pot. She is talking about it needs to be restricted more than cigarettes. I agree with some of the stuff they're calling for. They're calling for, of course, the age limit. That'll be decided provincially. They're calling for absolutely zero smoking allowed in a vehicle. No driving and smoking. They are trying to make it classed more regulated than tobacco. And tobacco kills, and marijuana is never killed. So I encourage you to look at this, to comment on it, to forward it to mental health professionals you may know and call bullshit on it. Yes, we will enter a hugely regulated market next year. I know that. They're going to have it so regulated, it's going to be really difficult for anybody to recreationally enjoy the product. However, it's that foot through the door. It's opening that door and making sure that it never locks again. Then it's expand the doorway. Prop it open more and more and let more out. We have to start by getting in there first, getting that door open and disabling the lock. That's what next year brings. So will some of these restrictions, really barbaric restrictions, be in place next year? Likely, because we have a lot of people making the decisions for us that have either never smoked it or are hiding the fact that they've smoked it behind closed doors, and because of that they never research it. Most of these leaders don't want to research it, because then they have a history, a social history of typing cannabis in their search engine. They're afraid to learn because of the stigma that might be attached to trying to learn. And the fact, it's called cognitive dissonance, the fact that they will learn, and they know they will learn, and have to change their opinion. They don't want to. Cognitive dissonance. The very last story, is kind of a neat story, because I know Derek Thompson, especially from the UK, but I have a few followers from the UK, and Godforsaken Customs, who moved to Canada from the UK. This story is of Ireland, where hemp tea and hemp coffee are being sold. C+ Swiss hemp iced tea contains syrup made from the fiber of a cannabis plant, and it's not illegal in Ireland. The issue here is they even want to ban the leaf. It's read the story. It's kind of silly. It's kind of puff, but it's at least showing that the UK is starting to understand this is coming to you, folks. This is coming all worldwide. A decade from now, we will look back at this time of prohibition and we will look at it worse than we looked at alcohol prohibition. At least alcohol was a dangerous substance and still is, and is better regulated now and maybe properly regulated, fairly regulated. Adults should be allowed to have whatever poison they want, even if they want. Anyways, that is, my friends, the end of Weedy Weekend number 105, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I want to bring many more of these to you, and I promise you, you may have heard that I'm worried about YouTube, but I'm still here. Peace and cheers, friends. Love and harmony. We'll see you next week, and we'll see you all week on my Porch Ponderings. Check them out.